impressive bounce back win by the Indiana Pacers, who go into Toronto and get it done. They sweep the Raptors this season, a tough matchup, but the Pacers win all three. A win without Halliburton's always good for the Pacers. How would they do it? Andrew Nembhard, Benedict Mather, and the Canadian rookies get it done on the road. We'll talk about the game, those two players, and let's put a bow on the Mad Ant season. Perhaps too early. All coming today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, diving into a big day for the Pacers, taking down the Raptors on the road. Pacers needed at least one, probably two wins on this road trip to really keep pace in the play-in race, and they'd get one over the Raptors in Toronto after a stinky loss on Monday to the Hornets. Well, how did it happen? Andrew Nembhard happened. We'll break it all down, how the Pacers got it done. I want to talk a lot about Benedict Mathurin, who's now played in 2 games since returning from injury, and we'll close out today's show. A little look at the Mad Ants, whose season ends potentially, I'll explain why, over the weekend. Players who have been shining. I saw them in person this past weekend. A good time to dive in on them and their season. But we start in Toronto. Actually, we start by saying, I hear all your comments about the changed intro music. People don't seem to like it. I might look for another song very soon. I promise I hear you into your comments. But today, Raptors, Pacers, impressive bounce back for the Pacers, because honestly, I thought I was going to be doing a totally different show for the second straight game. Last game, I thought I was going to be talking a lot about Matherin's return and the Pacers getting a road win without Halliburton, and they blew it. This game felt like the same game as the Hornets game the Pacers just played Monday, right? If you remember that game, Pacers 40-22 lead after the first quarter, and then they have this terrible run right before halftime, this terrible run in the middle of the third. They get the lead in the fourth and then give it away and lose. And so this game, the Pacers were up 13 in the first quarter. They were up 13 in the middle of the second quarter. The Raptors closed the half strong, and they're only down by 6 at the break. The Raptors take the lead in the third quarter. The Pacers are holding on through the fourth. But the difference was the Pacers closed out this game, and emphatically closed out this game. They were really good for the last 4 minutes of this game, and that made it entirely different, changed the script from Monday, made everybody immediately forget about that one. So what was all the differences? Well, for starters, Oshae Brissett started in Aaron Nesmith's place. I think there was some hometown Canada stuff going on there. I think there was some matchup stuff going on. Brissett was solid in this game. But the biggest difference between the Monday Pacers and the Wednesday Pacers that allowed this different outing to happen was Andrew Nembhard. There's no other way to talk about it. I wrote it in my takeaways from Pacers Hornets. I talked about it in a segment after the game. He was rough, right? I think he finished with 2 points. He shot 1 for 7, a bunch of turnovers. Really rough night for Andrew Nembhard Monday, and a couple of those misses came in crunch time when the Pacers needed buckets, and he had a couple untimely and rough turnovers, right? Not a good game for him in terms of leading a team in the clutch when he needed to be good. In this game, this was about as good as Andrew Nembhard's been all season. In Detroit, a couple weeks ago, in Golden State come to mind. He's had some special moments in games and has shown that occasionally he can be a really solid point guard. If you listen to yesterday's show, I said about 5 out of every 8 games he's been good recently. This was a special performance from Nembhard. 25 points on only 17 shots, 10 assists, only 2 turnovers, plus 8 in a 4-point win, and the dagger 3 late to put the game away. And also in the fourth quarter, some brilliant passes in the pick and roll to get Miles Turner to the foul line or get Miles Turner some buckets. Miles Turner, 6 free throw attempts in this game, led the Pacers. Nembhard was a big part of that. He was special in this game in a way that he absolutely was not on Monday. Fourth quarter, Nembhard had 5 points and 4 assists in that frame. Assuming those were all twos, which I can't even confirm, that's at least 13 points he accounted for in the final frame. The juxtaposition between the way he played Monday and Wednesday was the biggest reason the Pacers were better in this game. He says, he doesn't say, he was a Raptors fan growing up, per his own admission. He called it the Air Canada Center. It's his first time playing there as a pro. It's now Scotiabank Arena. And so he just took full advantage of that opportunity. That can actually be kind of hard, right? The team you're a fan of and grew up watching and all that. he took it in stride and looked fantastic and special in this game and showed why. Again, I did a whole segment on this a few weeks ago. Sometimes when he looks clunky and like he doesn't fit that well with this team, I think it's because he's a point guard and he's playing off ball a lot for this team. And when this team is fully healthy, that is his best role right this second, right? For the way he can help this team. But long term, I think it's clear he's more point guard than off ball. And so as Halliburton's back up and they can mix and match together, I think that's where his role will settle in. This game was more evidence of that. He was so good, so good. He was good on defense as well. I have to include this part. He defended Siakam, not a lot, but like a decent amount in this game. And Siakam played really well to his credit, but like the fact that he even had the assignment says a lot about Andrew Nembhard's performance level in this game and his defensive abilities and the belief the Pacers have in him. And he just completely took it all in stride after a tough game Monday. He has bounced back a lot from bad games in his career, and this was another evidence of that, and that he was the biggest reason as an individual to me the Pacers were able to get this game done. Another reason there was not a repeat of Monday is the Hornets defense held the Pacers to 109 because the Pacers couldn't quite solve it, get to the right spots, hit the shots. They were either rushed or not getting to the rim or all sorts of stuff that was not typical of the Pacers. In this game, I didn't think this was going to be a takeaway, but it became one. The Pacers solved the Raptors' defense. First quarter Pacers, 36 points in this game. First quarter Hornets, 40 2 nights ago. And then the next 3 quarters, the Pacers offense scored 69 total points against the Hornets in a loss. This time, the Raptors defense did adjust. They went to zone in the middle of the second quarter. They started full court pressuring. They were switching and doing all the stuff. Like they had Ron Nora do the assistant coach halftime interview on the Bally Sports Indiana broadcast. He's like, yeah, we've got to communicate and be ready for anything because that's what the Raptors do. They will throw these unique coverages at us. We have to be ready. We have to be prepared to break them down. And in the third and second quarter, the Pacers did not do that, right? They only scored 48 points in those 2 quarters combined. 47, excuse me, math is hard. And I thought because of that, and because, like I said, it just felt like an exact replica of Monday's game, that was going to be the case in the fourth quarter game. Instead, the Pacers, and Nembhard was a big part of this, but everybody really contributed, figured it out in the fourth, whether the Raptors were switching or in zone or doing something funky like they are so good at. The Pacers figured out what to do and found a way to get buckets, get points, get an opening, whatever they needed to do. They did it, and that was absolutely massive for them in the fourth quarter of this game, is figuring out a good defensive team's defense in a way that they couldn't do very recently. And without Halliburton, sometimes that's just been a struggle for them in general. They only have 5 wins without him all season. This was the 5th one, but they did it in this game and against a talented Toronto team with a bunch of size. That was impressive. A couple other things, some mixing and matching success for the Pacers in their rotation, right? Brissett starting, like I said, is a big deal. Nesmith ends up playing more than him, but just in general, the way they used Mathurin, the ways they stuck Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith in there when Wara played, like in general, I think Carlisle pushed all the right buttons with the rotation in this game, and everybody had, nobody was above Nembhard's +8 in terms of individual plus minus, so nobody was worse than McConnell's -5. I didn't even think McConnell was like that bad in this game, right? Everybody was within that range, within a range of double digits. Like that, they all were mixed and matched in a way that led to success for the Pacers, led to individual success, and cracked the code of whatever the Raptors happened to be doing eventually, right? There were some clunky moments certainly in there, but everybody played their part no matter what the lineup was, no matter who was out there with them. If it was a big group, right, we saw Smith plus Jackson again. We saw Warren and Brissett together again. If it was a smaller group, like Nesmith still played with 4 guard groups, those worked fine at the right times, and the Pacers found a way to punish whatever the Raptors were doing. It was just impressive in a way that doesn't always happen. But in this game, I thought Rick Carlisle and the Pacers did a good job of whoever was out there was cohesive, and Carlisle did a good job pushing the right buttons. And the last thing I want to talk about is just the impressive nature of this bounce back from the Pacers, who at this stage, right, you lose that game to the Hornets, one of your easiest games left on your schedule all season. You could phone it in, 2.5 back of the Bulls, 3.5 back of the Raptors. It's hard to dial it up in a game like this, but a lot of guys were having hometown games, and the Pacers were laser focused, played a good game, and got it done. Now they are 1.5 back of the Bulls, who got demolished by the 76ers tonight, and only 2 back of Toronto in 9th, and I think 3 back of Atlanta in 8th. Again, unreasonable to think they can get that high. If they get some wins here and there that were unexpected, it's not impossible. It's playing standings will continue to be tracked. Standings watch will be coming next week. I thought maybe we wouldn't need it, but We might now after this game, beating another play-in team, specifically critically important for the Pacers. If you want to read, by the way, a story with all the quotes about the Pacers and their play-in chase, I talked about some of them on yesterday's show. It's on si.com/NBA/Pacers. Thought it was a revealing story about what the Pacers players want. I know fans do not agree with that at this stage, but I just want people to see what the thinking is in the locker room there. Let's pivot and talk about a guy who I thought had a good game, has been playing well since returning from injury this week, and overall just deserves to be highlighted some. Bennedict Mathurin, a really solid performance from Mathurin. Once again, 2 in a row now since returning from injury. I also wrote a story on him, so I have all the stats on the top of the brain. Mathurin, 5 shot attempts in this game, 15 points. Insane efficiency. How did he do it? Why is he playing so well? Let's talk about all that, but before we do so, got to talk to you guys about Ultimate Basketball GM, a new sponsor here for Locked On Pacers, and I am geeked out about. Ever dreamed of becoming an NBA GM and managing your basketball franchise? Well, dream no more. Your dream can come true with this game. It's definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and assistants, trading and training players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and all the ups and downs of a season in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Pro Basketball GM, completely free and playable offline, play on the go, where and when you want. It's really fun. We have a Locked On NBA hosts group. Pat, the designer's kicking everybody's butt. A lot of trash talk coming in. You can do the same with your friends. You got to try it. Locked On Pacers listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check that out. To download the game, to visit probasketballgm.com, scan the code on your YouTube screen, or look it up in the app stores. That's probasketballgm.com. Ultimate Basketball GM. Start your dynasty today. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, Locked On Raptors, obviously. Hear what Sean Woodley has to say about the other side of this game. Siakam's great game. Jakob Poeltl's good statistical game, but clunky foul line game that made him kind of a liability at times. Weird game for the Raptors. When I think, as Sean said, when Malachi Flynn is your fourth best player, not necessarily a good night. And that was the case for Toronto in this game. He'll have more over at Locked On Raptors. Bennedict Mathurin in this game, as efficient as you can be. He took 5 shot attempts, 5 field goal attempts, and had 15 points. He had all of his threes. He had all of his 6 free throws. So he gets a 15 points on 5 shots. That's insane. That is ridiculous efficiency. And that got me thinking, what's he done since his return? Well, on Monday, he had 18 points on 10 shots. Also really good efficiency. So he's at 33 points on 15 shot attempts since coming back. That's insane. That's ridiculous for a rookie to have that sort of efficiency over a 2-game stretch. And it wasn't just that made Mathurin really great in this game. He fit in, right? Sometimes it feels like on Monday, I felt like he was not a ball stopper. Like I made this clear on the show, but just like sometimes the ball didn't pop out of his hands the way that it does when he's at his best. In this game, it was. His defense was solid. He had a block and a steal. He had 2 rebounds. Like he did all the little stuff that makes Bennedict Mathurin good besides the scoring, which obviously has been the thing that has popped for him, but the efficiency continues to shine. And the fact that he hasn't missed a single beat returning from this ankle sprain, right? He wanted to play in all 82. Now he can't. His peak's like 78. He only played 3 minutes in that Rockets game. So I suppose 77 basically is his peak this season. I wonder if he'll go for it, right? Key development guy for them, obviously down the stretch. He's only 20, but still good for their winning. So he's probably the embodiment of what the Pacers are talking about when they say balancing, developing, and winning. He was so good in this game, and it's so impressive to come back from injury like this and immediately be just as good. And I think that as this season has progressed, I was doing this story for Forbes, it's up now, about, how did the Pacers kind of adjust in their first ever sample without him on the floor. So I was digging through the numbers and the play style and all that kind of stuff. And like as the season progressed, his 3-pointer was really hot at the beginning of the year, and that kind of waned away. And then it became clear that his lack of passing was, not a problem, but just like not an additive to the Pacers bench. And like those kind of became almost too much of a focus, and I think detracted from how good Mathurin actually is. and I think as I dug through the numbers and the stories, it's like, man, I think we kind of drifted away from talking about the success that he's had and the skills that he has. Not that he's without limitations. He still totally is. But he has been really good this year in a way that I think has been under highlighted. And I think these 2 games returning and digging through the numbers, of course, was interesting to me. And the thing I'll start with, and I only sort of included this in the story, but his free throw rate is excellent. I don't just mean like for a rookie, like he gets to the line a lot. I'm talking in the entire NBA. He is 16th in free throw rate, and almost every player ahead of him is a big man because big men either get fouled more or take less shot attempts. Like the top two in free throw rate are Mason Plumlee and Dwight Powell, not because they're like fantastic at getting to the line, but just because they don't shoot that much, right? So like there are some gimmicks to this. But of the guys above him, the only non-bigs are Jimmy Butler, amazing foul drawer, Austin Reeves, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, and Harrison Barnes. Every other player above him is a big. So of perimeter-ish players, whatever you want to call Harrison Barnes, I'd say he's a perimeter player. 6 players in the league have a better free throw rate than him, and they're all vets, and they're all very talented. And then it's Ben Mathurin, right? Ben Mathurin is right above the likes of Damian Lillard, who's 17th, and James Harden, a better free throw rate than James Harden, who's 20th. Trae Young's 23rd. Like, just to give you the gist of how good Mathurin is at getting to the line, I think that stat says a lot about it. And the Pacers were at or below their free throw attempts per game average in 4 of the 5 games that Mathurin missed with his injury, right? That is one clear thing that he is incredible at. And like, even if you aren't the greatest shooter, Dave Sorrell and I talked about this when he was on the Locked On Pacers really early in the season. We were talking about Mathurin. Like, the reason his floor is so high for individual games right this second, regardless of what he can be in the future, is because he can have a stinker shooting night and go 2 for 10, but he'll get to the line 8 times, and all of a sudden he has, 14 points on 10 shots, and then it doesn't look so bad. And that free throw rate's a big reason why. The Pacers shoot like 6 free throws per 100 possessions more when he's on the court than off, which is insane. Like, he is just such a boon for efficiency in that way. And I don't think people realize how elite that free throw rate is. And this game once again showed that, as he tied for the team high with 6. He made 6, which was absolutely a team high. And that's the other thing. He's not just getting to the line, he's actually making it, right? So he, despite barely being above 30% from 3 and still having some in-between game growth to go, has above average true shooting, right? Because he's so good at getting to the line. Like, that is a skill that can only grow too. Like, rookies don't get calls, is that thing that Tyrese Haliburton was always saying early in the season. There's a lot of other stuff that Mathurin's good at that isn't just that. That's obviously the thing that buoys him the most. But I think 2 other things stood out when digging through the numbers of the games he missed and what he does for this team. And one is his ability to kind of set the pace in motion. Speaking of setting the pace, Alex Golden from Setting the Pace is going to join us tomorrow. Mathurin is, when he's in there, the Pacers' early offense is better, right? They get their shot up earlier in the possession, which can be valuable. There was a good piece in 538 literally yesterday about offensive rating as time on the shot clock goes down and the correlation between the two. But Mathurin also, by being a pesky on-ball defender, helps them be in transition more where they're really good. He's a good transition player, right? Like, there's all these things that he's good at in terms of the team's identity that I think matter too. Like, if he couldn't play the Pacers' identity, he would not fit as well. Like, Haliburton sets everything in motion. He can play that way and add to it, which I think is noteworthy for his skill set. We've seen the flashes of him being a shooter. We've seen him add like Euro step moves and swinging it around on the perimeter more. Like, very recently, him and Duarte were getting praise for their, improvements in the passing department. He's still got work to do there. His team defense still needs work as well. But I think in general, this pesky defense, his ability to play with pace, play with the pace that the Pacers want to play, that was a mouthful, and be a demon in transition, really are undersold by the way that his season really started hot and then kind of waned. Like, he still was really good at a lot of stuff that made him a plus player for this team that should be playing all the time. And he was very good in this game. He started 2 games in a row with Haliburton out. They need his creation juices in the starting 5. And the last point I made in the story is the drives. I talked about what the Pacers would be missing with him out on a segment 2 weeks ago. I called out the drives, right? He's 7 or 8 per game, is like a huge number. The only 2 guys in the Pacers with more are their point guards who have the ball a gazillion times, McConnell and Haliburton. The Pacers didn't have Haliburton in these games either, so they tried like hell to get to the basket and drive without those 2 guys, and it was harder, right? That he is just so good at that in that way too. So look, yeah, he's got some warts. I've ran through him in the segment, but the fact that he can be plug and play like this as a rookie, where he just comes back in, he starts right away, he's super efficient, he's still good at the things he's good at. He doesn't need any lead up or any feel it out kind of stuff. The aggression is there, the confidence is there. Doing well in a newer lineup. This is 8th start is telling, right? It's very telling of the skills he has, the mentality he has, and how he can grow with this franchise. He was quite good in this game, and he will be quite good going forward. I think the free throw rate is the standout thing. Obviously, I really wanted to call that out after digging into the numbers today and share that, but he's good at so many things. And in this game, when you make all the threes, when you play good defense, when you're a big part of a win in your home country for the first time of your career, all these mental things could be going on. He was special. He's going to be a great player. And I think some of that got lost by some of the warts that popped up as the season progressed. Great game from Benedict Mathurin. Great game from Andrew Nembhard, the two rookies for the Pacers, shining in Canada, in Toronto, in their home country. Well, plenty more on them going forward. Third and final segment today, the Mad Ants' last two games of their season, Friday and Saturday, if they don't make the playoffs. I just watched the Mad Ants in person for their home matinee this past weekend. I want to catch you up on the Pacers' two-way players, the Mad Ants season, where they are heading with 2 games to go, and guys to watch out for. I think that's the biggest thing beyond the two-way guys with the Mad Ants is who's been really good for them that the Pacers could call up in the future, because that is something they have a habit of as an organization. Before we get to that, though, let me talk to you guys about FanDuel. The season is in its waning moments for the NBA. March Madness is going crazy. Now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back. If your first bet doesn't win, just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, it's super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to threes drained. Will your favorite player go over or under their point total? Will your favorite team cover the spread? Whatever you like, they've got it on FanDuel. Plus, they even let you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, hop on over to Locked On Mavs. I thought I was going to say the Mavs played a key game in the standings against the Warriors. Luka Doncic returned. How did they look? And that's not even the story from Dallas. Controversial call, kind of. Mark Cuban tweeting about it. A protest of a game. What? If you missed it, Dallas Golden State had a crazy moment in the third quarter. Locked On Mavs or Warriors can break that down for you. But also what's going on with the Mavs, who are in the play-in territory again and, fittingly, are coming to Indy Monday. So catch up on the Mavs with Locked On Mavs hosts. Let's close today talking about the Pacers G League affiliate team, the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. Went down to watch them, whatever, on Sunday in Fort Wayne for their home finale of the season. Kendall Brown, obviously the Pacers rookie they drafted in the second round. His season might as well be over with this tibia stress fracture that required surgery. But I did get to see Trevelin Queen, Pacers guard. He's played in 7 games for them this season. He was really good. He had 23, 7, and 5 in that game. 8 and 5, 23, 8 and 5 in that game. He's so electric with the ball in his hands. And I wrote a whole story up on si.com/NBA/Pacers about the growth of Trevelin Queen and Kendall Brown through the eyes of Mad Ants head coach Tom Hankins, because he's seen it the most. And this year has been kind of unique for the Pacers in that they haven't needed their two-way guys that much, right? Last year, a ton of Terry Taylor, a ton of Dwayne Washington. The year before, Brian Bowen played a decent amount. Amita Brima played in the play-in games for the Pacers, right? They needed these bigs, right? Ben Moore, Alex Poitras, like Edmund Sumner, like two-way guys have played a lot for the Pacers historically. This year, only 13 total games, with some garbage time being most of those, for Trevelin Queen and Kendall Brown. So I asked Tom Hankins, the Mad Ants head coach, about their growth. And, for Queen, it's been about moving the ball and defense. He's grown up in both of those ways. Mad Ants lead the G League in assists per game. Queen's been a big part of that. He was not known for his passing. Everybody has raved about his scoring ability that I've talked to within the Pacers, most of them on the record. He's very talented in that way. Kendall Brown, he said it was really good. There was a 7-game stretch between Brown returning from injury and being out for the season, where he was really solid. 12.3 points, 4.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists per game in that span. He was finally getting better, like health-wise, and really putting it all together as a defender and open court player before this injury happened. We'll see what his future holds. I'll be intrigued by what's next for him. But they both got better throughout the season. And that's what you want of your two-way program if you're the Pacers. Trevelin Queen, obviously the G League MVP last year. He's a very solid player. He's kind of grown as a person, I think, too. Like he can get very frustrated in game. He wears his emotions all over himself during games. I think he's been better at keeping it under control and being like a leader. Like on the bench, you can see him being very active. with this team. So the two Pacers specific players have been solid. And I think the note I have for the 2A guys near the end of the Mad Ants season for fans is always the same, right? Once the Mad Ants are done, they're done before the NBA is over. The Mad Ants' last two regular season games are this weekend, and they could make the playoffs. I'll get to that in a second. But if they don't, their season ends. The 2A guys just go to the Pacers, and the G League limit part doesn't matter anymore. It sort of does, but the Pacers guys aren't close to it. So Trevelin Queen can just be with the Pacers the rest of the season. That's good for his development. That's good for a potential depth option if they need it. Right? We'll see what they turn to. Brown obviously is hurt, but that's important. Just having those bodies around is nice. It's more practice bodies. It's more depth. It's just better. So that's helpful for the Pacers. But the Mad Ants season could not end on Saturday. They play two games, Friday, Saturday. Yes, Saturday's their last regular season game. The Mad Ants are 16-14. So are two other teams in the Eastern Conference, and there's two other teams that are 17-14, and there's a 17-13 team and an 18-13 team. Oh, and there's two 15-15 teams. That was a mouthful. Teams 3-11 in the Eastern Conference in the G League, separated by 2.5 games with 2 games to go. Wow, Mad Ants right in the thick of it. The top 6 teams make the postseason, and the Mad Ants are not looking great on tiebreakers. But if they win both of their games this weekend against the Delaware Bluecoats, they have a good chance at sneaking into that G League postseason. And it's a two rounds of best of one before the finals. They're a talented team this year. They've had a lot of guys go in and out, guys go play for Team USA, a lot of stuff that's made it hard for them to be consistent, but they're talented. They have a chance at the postseason, and that would delay Trevelin Queen and Kendall Brown potentially coming up to the Pacers. But they've had a solid season of development. They've got some NBA guys in the mix. They've had some ex-Pacers in the mix, and I think those are some other guys worth focusing on. But really fun to watch that team this year. They're the opposite of the Pacers. If you can catch them on Friday or Saturday, which might be tough because Pacers play both days, but I would highly recommend it. They have a ton of wings. They have a ton of wings that they're trying to sift through and play and see who's really good. I don't know if any of them will ever end up with the Pacers, but if I had to give you names, right, the leading guys for the Pacers, you've heard of some. Gabe York's averaging 22.2 points per game. He was with the Pacers for 2 games last year. He's won G League Player of the Week like 3 times this season. He's been really good, right? Justin Anderson's averaging over 20 points per game. You all remember him from his time with the Pacers last year, right? They've both been really good for the Mad Ants again this year. But the standout name to me is Jermaine Samuels. If you don't remember Jermaine Samuels, he was with the Pacers for Summer League. Was pretty good there. I think he played in 4 of the 5 games. And then he was signed for 1 day at the end of training camp for the Pacers. So getting that Exhibit 10 money before going to the G League. He is 15 points per game guy on 67% shooting, 46% from deep, albeit on a low volume, 7.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists. He plays a lot like Jakar Sampson, but with more perimeter skills. He's good. He is the guy amongst this Mad Ants group that you haven't heard of. You've heard of Gabe York and Justin Anderson. It would not be stunning to anyone if they got an NBA call-up. But Jermaine Samuels, I think, is the dude that has the most NBA potential of this group. And I think he's the guy that if the Pacers do call someone up at the end of the year where they do that 2-way dance, they bring somebody in for the last couple of games like last year, if their season's over, something like that, he'd be the one that I think would have the best chance of that by kind of a significant amount. I really like Pedro Bradshaw. He's pretty good. Jordan Bone, who has NBA experiences with them now. So is Elfrid Payton. I'll have a story on him coming up. He's been really good for them as a leader. He's trying to work his way back into the NBA. He's with them, but they don't seem like the Pacer call-up names. Those names seem like Jermaine Samuels is far and away the leader. He has been really special for them every single time I've watched the Mad Ants. So their season pretty good. They've gotten some good development in. They've established some talent that could be NBA level very soon. If beyond the guys who have played in the NBA before, I think the guys to keep an eye on at the NBA level going forward would be Tevin Brown, Pedro Bradshaw, and of course Samuels. But the 2A guys have gotten better meaningfully, which is important. They've won more than they've lost. It's been a good season for the Mad Ants, and it comes to an end this weekend if they don't sneak their way into the playoffs. If they do, we'll cover it a little bit here on Locked On Pacers, especially if Trevelin Queen, who won G League MVP last year, continues to do well. I'll have stories on them as well. Thank you guys a ton for listening today. Fun show, fun game in Toronto for the Pacers, who have the toughest back-to-back ever coming up. Celtics at 7 on Friday, and then Hawks at 5 on Saturday, both on the road. So 22-hour difference between games with traveling between is terrible. Alex Golden from Standing the Pace is going to join us tomorrow. We're going to talk about the Halliburton plus Mathurin minutes. We're going to talk about revisiting the Brogdon trade because they play the Celtics. And one other topic that I sent him in a message and can no longer remember at this exact moment. Oh, yeah, the Pacers' focus for their last 9 games. So lots of fun topics. Should be really fun. And, of course, he's very good at podcasting. So it'll be a very fun show with lots of fun conversations. Thank you guys a ton for listening today. Hope you had a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. We will see you tomorrow.